Good afternoon, Silver Room. How you feeling? Silver. I feel a little bad because silver is, universally known as the second place, medal. But according to my calculations, this is a first place room. Am I right? Yeah. Fantastic. You keep telling yourselves that. Folks, we've got a great panel discussion ahead of us, and I'm gonna dive right into this. Though if you're entering late, it's distracting. We're really excited to have you here today for a deep dive into how Europe's circular economy regulations, like the Ecodesign for sustainability products regulation and its design product passport requirements, are reshaping the continent and worlds beyond. Today we'll explore the EU's strategies to support these changes and what this means for the future. So, our experts are going to be unpacking some challenges and opportunities presented by this regulatory landscape, and we're going to look at how does legislation affect trade and vice versa, so much more. When I say it, it's boring. When they say it, it's fascinating. So let's get to that sooner than later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up our panel. Now, here's something you should know. One of our panel members, Sarah, she had her plane canceled on her this morning, so she just landed. She took a later plane. She just landed. She's rushing over here now, and she'll likely be entering this panel late. Now, when that happens, she'll feel like, oh no, well, I feel bad because I'm late, but we're all going to make her feel welcome because I'm going to stop whatever's happening. I'm going to say, look, it's Sarah, and then we're all going to burst into a round of applause. No, better. We're all going to say, welcome, Sarah. All right? So let's practice that right now. In a moment, I'm going to interrupt myself, and I'm going to say, look, it's Sarah, and then we're all going to go, well, I'll go 1, 2, 3. Welcome, Sarah. It's going to be great. Okay, so anyway, let me tell you before I bring them up about our panel, who's going to be coming up on stage in a minute. We've got, and just for fun, just to make it more interesting for everybody, I'm probably going to mispronounce a couple of names on purpose. So I just think it's more fun that way. We've got Mr. Aurel Chubano-Dorja, the Director of Circular Economy and DG Environment, from the European Commission. Oh, look, it's Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. Oh, that's great. It'd be great if we really looked back there, too. All eyes. Next test, we're going to look back there. Yeah, she's going to feel her heart warmed. We have Mr. Ekhu Lim, Director of Trade and Sustainability from the WTO. We have Mr. Doshul Choi, the Senior Vice President of Samsung Electronics. This, by the way, Samsung tablet. You'll never catch me with an Apple product. Like the products, I just won't join their cult. And Ms. Francesca Poggiali, the Chief Public Policy Officer of Europe at GS1 Global. Now, before we start so let's bring up the panel. Come on up, panel. Give them a round of applause as they take the stage. Now, before we start oh, look, it's Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. That was a great test, and if you didn't look, shame on you. It was a great test. Aurel, before we start the conversation with everybody, would you just say a few words to put it all in context for us?
Yes, the moderator has established for this afternoon.
Now, one moment. I feel like your microphone's not on, right?
Not working?
So can we...
Oh, my God.
So just keep talking. Just talk about stuff that isn't important.
Stealing all the steam.
I think it's sorted now, right? Yeah, great. Off you go, Aurel.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes, much better. Yes. So a few words. The moderator has established for this afternoon's panel the objective that we feel silver now, but at the end of the panel, you should feel platinum. So, so a few words now, seriously speaking, about circular economy. Our objective, or at least my objective for this afternoon's sessions, is to convince everyone here, in particular those coming from third countries, from outside the European Union, that the legislation that the European Union has adopted over the past 3-4 years during this political cycle, which concludes at the end of this year, all this legislation is not directed against producers and exporters from third countries. Is not meant to erect trade barriers between the European Union and third countries. On the contrary, it is meant, and I will explain during the panel, maybe I will have a chance, or I will do it right now, why on the contrary it is meant to facilitate trade, but the primary purpose is to take care of to reduce the environmental footprint of the production and consumption within the European Union. We are very worried within the European Union, looking at the global outlook on resources, on waste, on raw materials, critical raw materials. We are very worried for first that our consumption goes way beyond the limits that not our continent, our planet offers to citizens, consumers, and to our enterprises. And if we continue on this pace, we will, in a few decades, exhaust the resources of our planet. So we need to do something in order to change the consumption patterns of our market, of our consumers, citizens, by preventing the material consumption, by preventing waste, by promoting reuse and recycling, and by reducing the different uses that we are currently making of the different resources. This is a primary purpose of the many regulations that we have adopted on packaging, on batteries, on waste shipments, on automotive, on electronics, and so on. And we are facilitating the trade because more and more we are adopting regulations at the expense of directives, replacing older directives, which have allowed our 27 member states to transpose them in different manners. And we are coming with regulations which create a single market. Instead of 27 different national labeling requirements for packaging, for instance, you will have, when the regulation will enter into force, you will face a single set of rules. And we hope to have our partners from third countries working with us in order to make the new rules to be adopted in the following years on eco-design, on batteries, on packaging, on many other areas, on textiles, working with us. We want and we welcome the door of our public consultations will be open to national regulators from third countries, to companies from third countries, to civil society from third countries, so that we together, in an indiscriminate way, we shape the new rules, their details, together, not just with the economic operators from Europe and the consumers from Europe, but also with the economic operators from abroad. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I want to jump right into this conversation by asking you all the same question. And here's the question. In your view, how can the integration of environmental and circular economy principles into trade policies foster both economic growth and environmental sustainability? And what key challenges do you anticipate in achieving this balance? So we really crammed 3 questions into one there. So I'll say it again for you. In your view, how can the integration of environmental and circular economy principles into trade policies foster both economic growth and environmental sustainability? And what key challenges do you anticipate in achieving this balance? I'd love to start down at the far right with Ake, if you don't mind.
Oh, I thought I was coming at the end after everyone had spoken, and I could just say I agree with everything that's been said.
No, that's Oral gets that privilege.
Oh, you put me on surprise there. But anyway, I know coming from the WTO, maybe just to start with by saying that, this is not well known unless you're a real trade nerd, but in the WTO's founding agreement, it begins with really with sustainable development. It speaks about how the purpose of the WTO and the work of the WTO is both in terms of facilitating trade, but facilitating trade with a purpose, and that purpose is to improve livelihoods, create jobs, and it's also about doing so in a way that is protecting the environment and that it is, at the end of the day, leading towards sustainable development. So that's very much in the what we call the preamble or the founding objectives of the WTO. So in a sense, what you were asking, Pat, about the integration of economic growth with environmental principles, or more specifically circular economy, you have a founding position there, a founding objective within the WTO. The next question, of course, this panel will unpack is how do we go from that vision, if you like, or that objective, to concrete reality of making it work. But I think that fundamental position is already there. And then the second point I think to add to that is that, of course, I'm looking at it from a position of trade policy. And trade policy is often multifaceted. It is much more than what happens at the border. It's also what happens behind the border. And I think a lot of the discussions here at the Circular Economy Forum are but very fundamental issues of production and consumption. And we do need to find a way to find greater mutual supportiveness between environmental policy and trade policy. It's not a new challenge. It's a challenge that has been with us for a long time, but it's an increasingly urgent challenge. So maybe I stop at that.
And you go deeper in a minute. We'll go deeper later.
Okay. All right.
No, I meant you'll have a chance to go deeper.
Do you want me to go deeper now?
No, I meant you'll have a
All
chance to go deeper.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
All
But
right.
that's on me. That was bad communication on my part. Francesca, what about yourself?
Yes, thank you. At first, it's an honor to be in this panel and to be moderated by you, Pep. Thank you. So I would just say that how do we face those challenges? I think it's more than 30 years that we speak about the what of circularity, right? For more than 50 years, or maybe more, we've been speaking about the why. Why did we need to embrace this at global level, at industrial level? The why, the what, and the when. I think the when is still very urgent, but it has been discussed so far. I think one of the challenges now that we are reaching the phase of the how do we make this happen? But we still have some of the when and the what open. But I think we are smart and we can do it all together, right? To go to the next level of what we are doing globally. So I represent an organization that only works on the how. And we rely a lot on the politicians, on the institutions, in order for them to clarifying all the rest. But when you go to the how, there are many, many different perspectives, and international organizations are also working on the how to make circularity happen globally at the same time as well. Otherwise, another challenge is about global fragmentation, and this is where I hope I'll go deeper afterward. Thank you.
Perfect. And Do Chul.
Well, it sounds like I'm only one among these members to produce something you'd like to criticize. But think about it. This industrial revolution started from here in Europe, okay? 18th century, 19th centuries. All of the part of the world copy European models. And suddenly this world is unsustainable. Everybody learned from Europe. So if there is any hope for the future to my grandchildren, I think solution should come from Europe here. Because you create, you have to solve it. And then everybody else will copy of it. Think about it. And also, by making this product, you think we are polluters. But I'm going to ask you different questions. In 1850s, in Europe and in USA, all developed countries, the woman, those days, housewives spent 2 days per week just for laundry. You know, many of Europe, the American and European too, they have to walk 150 miles per year to bring 30 tons of water for household. Okay, this problem is solved by washing machine. So you think the washing machine is polluter because the washing machine creates microplastic? Yes, we release a little bit of it, but hand wash, we release same amount of microplastic. We use some kilowatt. Yes, we use some kilowatt, but it's a lot less than your hand washes. So think about it. There are certain product categories which you have to support to make ecosystem, make a society more sustainable. Not everything equal to contribute to the world. I'm working for Samsung. We do make semiconductors. Every year we try to make it smaller and smaller. Smaller semiconductor in such a way that semiconductor size is a scale of coronavirus. Okay, that small semiconductor, why do we make that? By making it, you can waste a lot less heat in doing semiconducting functions. Now, again, this is also eco-sustainability. We don't talk about that because as a manufacturer, we are sometimes wrong. But actually, we are. The purpose of it is to make net zero use of power. And the reason I'm here for that is actually more for home appliances. Think about it. If all your refrigerators strike one day because European Commission didn't like it because we use too much kilowatts, then what will happen to you? You end up wasting a lot more food. You need to travel to grocery bag and forth every day. You use a lot more carbon to pollute the world. So every regulation, you have to see the holistic view, not local view, to see what is the human impact, what is the impact to economy too. And moreover, we are, as all you guys are human beings, the most important ecosystem as human beings. Anything for human being, we have to respect for that. This is a very difficult question to commissioners, to regulators, to NGO, whoever it is. But think back, looking at 100 years of history, or 200 years of history. And then again, I'm gonna challenge you different question. If you have toilet, and if you have cell phone, if I ask you, choose one, and others you cannot use it, what you gonna use it? You can live life without smartphone, but you cannot live life without toilet. So what I'm saying is the fundamental need of human being need to be maintained, and so you have to take a look at industry that way. Thank you.
Toilet, definitely toilet. Arl, care to comment?
Certainly, thanks a lot really for these very interesting comments and insights, both from the industry under different forms and also from the World Trade Body. So to try to answer in a maybe less, how to say, appealing maybe with so many anecdotal evidence as Docul has done, I would say a way to embed, and we do not pretend that we preach to the other jurisdictions of the world. This is a reflection within the European Union, and a reflection which is followed by action in order to try to intertwine better circularity and sustainability in general with manufacturing and with economic development and ultimately with trade. We have changed the perspective over the past few years, and instead of dealing with circularity only from the perspective of the end of life of product, what do you do with the reuse, what do you do with the recycling, what do you do with the waste management, you burn it, you landfill it, you don't landfill it, dismember, recycle, recirculate, etc. We thought wise people have reflected about this and have seen that the design of products influences up to 80% the situation of the materials. What do you do with it and the end of life of each product? So we have reshuffled in a way our regulatory philosophy and also our regulatory operation and intervention in order to integrate sustainability from the beginning. When defining the product requirements, think circularity, think sustainability, think reuse, think prevention of waste, think reducing material consumption. And we put it already in the design of products. Now, this has consequences for the manufacturers, for the placement of the market, for the traders, for the importers, of course, for the manufacturers, not only within the European Union, also outside the European Union. And of course, the examples that have been exposed by Dochul are very telling and very insightful. This is why, because we work more on the design of products, and we will work in the years to come, more will come in the years to come, because some of the big pieces of legislation which have been adopted over the past few years, starting with the Ecodesign for sustainable product regulation, are framework pieces of legislation, and the specific regulatory interventions for tires, for textiles, for steel, for aluminium, for polymers, are going for IT devices, for imaging equipment, are going to come only in the years that follow this one. So this is why it will be important for us to work with both consumers and manufacturers, and with environmental stewardship organizations, in order to see from all the angles and to have a sort of contradictory process. I won't say that this will lead to the judiciarization of product regulation, but we would like to hear all the views which can be expressed, users and manufacturers at the same time.
All right, thanks, Aurel. In a moment, I just want to let everybody know, in a couple of minutes, I'll be coming to y'all for questions. So if you have a question now, don't just yell it out. It's rude. But we'll have time for questions, and I think there's some folks in here with microphones. Is that right? Yeah, there's some folks with microphones. You're off duty now though. But thanks for identifying yourselves. And if you don't like public speaking, or if you're watching online, then you can use the app, and we'll take questions for the app, and they get beamed right into my Samsung tablet, and it's perfect. For now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask each of you a question that's sort of just tailor-made for you. And Ag, I'll start with you because I know you don't like that. From your perspective, from the World Trade Organization perspective, what are the main barriers hindering the adoption of sustainable trade practices globally, and how can the WTO support in overcoming them through capacity building initiatives and technical assistance?
Well, thanks. Maybe try to address this in two parts. I mean, there are, let's call it, very high-level challenges, and I think that's true whether we're talking about circular economy or talking about any other subject today. And some of these are things which are very evident, I think, to everyone in the room. And then we see strong geopolitical risk, and we see a lot of fragmentation. We see a certain mistrust, if I can put it this way, of global supply chains. Some of it is linked to, you could call it protectionism, or basically a sense of insecurity of some sort. So these are really big picture types of challenges, but they are challenges that really at the center of any multilateral project, let's put it that way, and WTO, as with other UN organizations, are basically, that's our daily bread, which is create a multilateral world, a world that would unite through more cooperation, more coherence, less fragmentation, and essentially build better global security through a multilateral agreement. So that's essentially it. That's what we're trying to address. And I think that challenge can also be turned the other way around as an opportunity, because we also have another really burning, clear, urgent agenda, which is the environmental agenda. And it's an existential agenda. So we know from the past, I'm an idealist perhaps, but in the past, such existential crisis forces countries to cooperate and to find an overriding way to proceed, which is basically multilateral cooperation, despite differences in how they might approach the specific problem. But tying it down more specifically to circular economy, we at the WTO, we have many different environmental initiatives going on. I won't mention all of them, but to mention that On circular economy, interestingly, we find much more commonality than on perhaps some of the other environmental initiatives that are being discussed at the WTO. And we do see that there are groupings of both developed and developing countries coming together to discuss how would they address this change. And it is really about a change of trade and circular economy, and how do you use trade as a lever for circularity and the circular economy. And here I think, that the challenge I was talking at the coffee break with one of the participants here was what are some of the challenges? And I think some of it, to me, is very basic as a non-circular economy specialist, which is to go from an architectural vision to plumbing, and because you can't really make it work until we get into the nitty-gritty of getting the plumbing to work, the electricity to work, to get the windows in the right place and the rooms in the right place, and they have to somehow interconnect. If we're going to lever trade as a way to lever the circular economy, and I think we have to, because a lot of the sessions that I've heard so far today have talked about really scaling up. And how can you scale up? You need to use trade in order to scale up, and I think that's true for virtually everything in the global economy. But are we there? I think not quite, because we need some really basic building blocks. And for trade policies to work, there needs to be a lot more transparency about standards, regulations. There needs to be a lot more coherence. We ideally would like greater alignment to international standards. We would like to see more trade facilitation for the circular economy in this specific case, and so forth. And some of this WTO can address, but quite a lot we can't address, because we don't set standards and we don't set regulations for the sector. What we do set is that whenever you do industry and with governments and with standards bodies, when they do set these standards, they not just try, they have to make sure that the standards are non-discriminatory, that they are aligned to the objective that they're trying to obtain, that they take into account the development dimension, that they don't result in arbitrary or hidden protectionism, if you like. So these principles are already there. There's no trade and circular economy agreement at the WTO, but you have these agreements, horizontal agreements. The one perhaps that comes to mind most specifically is here I'm getting to real trade geek stuff, but technical barriers to trade agreement that covers standards, regulations, conformity, assessment procedures. And I think it's getting to that type of granularity that will be required. And what's the role of WTO? Well, I won't go into it too much, but we have a whole architecture at WTO for governments to use. And governments use the WTO, hearing from their stakeholders as well. And for instance, if a government is to adopt a new technical regulation, or even to begin the process of adopting a new technical regulation, it is required to notify, it is required to engage in discussions with other members who wish to discuss with it, and so forth. So there's a procedure there, and there's dialogue, and there's a process to try to even out what may be trade frictions. And no doubt that there will be trade frictions, but there are ways to address this. And technical assistance, capacity building, it's a really big subject. Just to say that we also hear a lot from developing countries that they do need that technical assistance and capacity building. But not all of it is going to come from one single place. So it's a question about what is the total package that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thanks, Hank. I'm going to jump over to Doshal now, just to try and throw him off balance. Doshal, what strategies does Samsung employ to ensure compliance with different product and environmental legislations and considering complex supply chains?
That's very tough questions.
Yeah, you're darn
Because
right.
we do business all over the world, and each country has different regulations. And sometimes some regulation is very unfair for manufacturer, so the regulation is a little bit different. But we found still the European regulation is toughest one. And we think that this is the standard for us. Let's say when you produce one product, you'd like to sell all over the world. What regulation you need to follow? The toughest regulation you follow. That's how we globalize European rule, because we make European fit product and go all around the world. And in Europe now, we have CBAM, Ecodesign, digital passport. Those kind of regulations sounds very good. Actually, it worked very well. It worked right way. But what I'm worrying about is end result, what it means. Once you follow all those regulations, require a lot of bookkeeping, a lot of difficulties, because sometimes we have suppliers of second, third, fourth, fifth. Very difficult to go all the way deep. That's the difficulties which we have. Although our supply chain system in such a way that provides the best computer system in the world, we use that. We can recognize, we can trace everything, we do better. But I wonder, some smaller scale company, how they can handle that? Pretty tough. For us, it's tough. For them, it's tough for. That's how I see it. And if you take a look at circular economies, and that there is a little bit different mindsetting, which as a manufacturer, which we have. In order to see the circular economy based on individual product, they may be able to fulfill whatever requirement give, but what is the end result will be. Let's say if I produce a product and I need to guarantee repairability and also the durability and also end of life sustainability, all those kind of things in order to fulfill, we have to change societies. We have to change the economic society as we are for the more sustainable society as a whole. I think that is much more effective than individual product. So let's say if I can sell, instead of selling, I can list the product, and I can trace my end user's use of it. And I know that when is end of product lifetime, and then I can introduce new product, that kind of model may be possible. I don't know who can do that. We cannot do that. We are just a manufacturer. We cannot sustain all those kind of things. So you have to think a little bit deeper into it to see this new regulation can have impact for environment. We have to take a look at economic system more seriously. I think that's the burden to us as a manufacturer. It will be burden to end users too. Because whatever we have, the burden, that will be burden to end users. There is no other way of it. We do need to run business like business. So that's what it is. So regulation, I mean, every regulation I read is good mindsetting, is right directions, it's good for the future and so on. But realization of when you implement the regulation, what will happen? And what will happen, end users? Think about it. Still, more than half of population cannot afford to have washing machine in the world. Maybe none of you guys have that problem. There are a lot of people who cannot afford to have washing machine. It's too expensive for them. If they use washing machine somehow, then they can save a lot of power, a lot of water too. So this is some kind of human factors is something which you have to take a look at. Again, the question was that questions. The answer to that is think big, think from society, think from social economics. I think that's a very important part.
That's great. That's fantastic. Francesca, I want to ask you about compliance and accountability. From the context of sustainable trade, what mechanisms and tools can be put in place to monitor and enforce compliance with sustainability regulations while increasing accountability in global supply chains?
Thank you for the question, Pep. And I want to thank you as well, because you mentioned international standards at first, before I did it. So I represent the barcode company, now transitioning to 2D and to the next generation of barcoding. And I think everybody here is a consumer, and we know that before the end of today, we probably go into a shop or we order something online. So we hear a beep, or we hear a click, we make a click. Behind that beep and that click, there are international standards. And the organization I represent, GS1, only deals with this. with international standards dealing with identification of products, locations, entities, machines. And in the last 50 years, we've been only with industry discussing how to make it better, how many data requirements we could exchange in B2B. But thanks to circularity, which is for us a big opportunity, and thanks to the digital product passport that the European Union is developing, we think that we can use the same data that we were exchanging and building for other reasons to make the world greener and better. And this global language, when you go to the how, because in the panel I think I'm taking it from the how perspective, which tools and mechanisms? Well, you need standards. You need, the smaller the companies are, because you also mentioned smaller companies, the bigger need they have for standards. Because if each time you need to rediscuss which data requirement are you going to exchange, how do you build it, which language do you use, which computer, which interoperability system are we discussing about, well, this slows down the process and make things really harder and more difficult. So there are international standards, and this is the good news. They are there, and they can be leveraged for this. I'm not saying that they solve all the issues, but I think they give a common basis for countries in development, for small and medium companies that can really accelerate the transition and be a champion in their niche sectors, right? So in the sectors that the regulators are choosing, because circularity is happening on the market, but we see that where there is regulation, there is an additional push for to go to the next level, let's say. So we see many opportunities. So tools and mechanisms are already available, and creativity is fantastic in the circular aspect. I've been spending a couple of hours downstairs, and I've seen ideas popping up, and each year is new. So I think we have the tools, or we will find the tools based on the common regulations set up. As far as also the regulators, if I may, don't just look at the garden, right? Because, I mean, we only have one planet, and we need to look at a global scale. So we are humans, we all have our passports, and we use it to go everywhere. And this should happen the same for products, right? Now that Europe is developing it, and my knowledge, you are the first area in the world developing digital product passports. So now that we have that passport, I think this can be the basis to negotiate all other passports, because other countries will follow. And we don't want companies to have one passport here and another passport there. And so tools are possible if also authorities, as you said at the beginning, work together to look at the global scale. Because each new data requirement that we include in one area of the world will cost millions and will cost a lot of discussions on how to do it. And why do I need CO2 emissions in Europe? And why do I need, I don't know, I'm just inventing, maybe in the other part of the ocean, I don't need CO2, I need the environmental performance only. And so who takes these decisions should have a global political approach to facilitate circularity every day, in every company, in all the sectors that you choose to prioritize. And standards will follow. I mean, we typically don't have any political opinion. We are there to support technically in the data. And one of the best tools that the European Commission invented so far for me, I'm 30 years in Brussels, I think it's the convergence between digital and green. Because for many years, as you said, you were looking at the end of products, but you were also only looking at it from a green perspective and from a digital perspective, but not together. And I think the digital product passport represents the convergence of digital and green, which is helping. That's why we think with the data, with the green data, we can obtain the green supply chain. But if you only command and control, of course, on the green side of things, eco-design, etc., getting the data is not a given. So that's why having digital data and green together is the secret of success, I think, also at global level to help companies doing it in the holistic way that you were asking for. Thank you.
It's a lot of nice synthesis in that answer as well. Otto, I wonder if you'd like to comment, but in light of the experiences and insights shared by the other panelists, how now do you see the role of EU policymakers in taking into account emerging trade barriers?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was reflecting as I was listening to the different speakers, and they are very valid points and remarks and suggestions which have been made, but I can understand that they, in particular, the colleague from WTO and the colleague from Samsung here have, how to say, expressed a certain sense of concern in the face of a significant number of rules and regulations coming from Europe over the past few years. And I would like to say on two things, I would say. On one hand, reassuring messages. First of all, that it is not our intention to discriminate between European and foreign manufacturers. We are interested in competition. Even if in the past, sometimes the competition has not always been in the interest of European economic operators, we believe that overall economic and societal dynamism and innovation and creativity are nurtured by competition. And we are interested to have economic operators and traders from abroad, innovators from abroad, working to find solutions that are acceptable within the European Union. So I am positing the following, let's say, or just commenting that there is essentially no example of discriminatory rule that intentionally was adopted by the European Union. We may not have a perfect track record. There might be accidents. We are happy to look into this and to correct these accidents where they appear. I was also hearing what the representative of Samsung had to say about the cumulative effects of regulation and the burden in particular for the small and medium-sized enterprises. And even on big enterprises, colossuses like Samsung appear to struggle as well with European regulation in the same way like small enterprises. So the difference between small and big tends to converge, and we narrow the gap, at least from this perspective. Our intention is not to overburden economic operators. On the contrary, we want them to thrive. There might be unintended consequences and cumulative effects over the following period. After the enactment of all these rules, we will continue on a permanent basis to look into the interplay of the different rules and where simplification can occur. But we should not lose from sight an essential thing, and I'm coming to the second part of my comment. All these regulations and rules have been adopted by the European Union over the past years for a reason, because we know, and it's not just from the subconscious, we know from evidence over the past 2 years we have seen the biofuel crisis and the unintended consequences of moving towards greener fuels and what that has created. We know so many stories about products which are very good and which have been created with child labor and through deforestation and through depleting the resources of copper and destroying communities. I don't know them by heart, but I think it will be a matter of hours to put on our tables all these traumatic, sometimes, experiences that we had in the past, and they have all collectively driven us towards paying higher attention. Accidents of sustainability, accidents of forced labor, accidents about and unintended consequences. So this has pushed us to look at all these aspects. We might, because so many things have been produced over such a short period of time, and 3-4 years is quite a short period of time, There might be aggregate effects, and there might be imperfections, and there might be sometimes the bureaucratic burden might be too high. We stand ready to correct these, to make these adjustments which are necessary. But make no mistake, and I would like to leave this with the room at the end of my comments, or maybe at least for now. Essentially, le sens de marche, the direction, the marching direction of all these regulatory interventions and of what we want to do with these regulatory intervention is a positive one. Is a positive one for not just the European societies, but we are taking responsibility for the environmental consequences that the huge European consumption, and we are a huge market, maybe larger than the United States, not as large as China, but still representative also in a way and drawing the attention of China. And we are having huge environmental consequences which go beyond the borders of the European Union. We need to take responsibility of what happens here and also with our consumption and our waste, which is shipped abroad and ends in the bay of rivers, or in the estuaries of rivers, or in forests, or in mismanaged landfills abroad. So we need to take responsibility of this, and we believe that the direction of evolution is a positive one. And we will work in order to improve the way, the speed, and the way in which we continue to go in the same direction. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Earl. Well, we've got time for a few questions. So if you have a question in the audience, there's a hand right away. And after that, I'm going to leave it to y'all because I'll play favorites. No, it's unfair because you think, but I think that was the first hand I saw go up. Let's go right over there with the microphone if you don't mind. And let me say this to the panel. Feel free in the audience to direct your question to a specific panelist or the whole panel. To the panel, don't feel like everybody's got to answer every question. You know, you can let some go. It's fine. We don't have a lot of time left.
Will come on? Okay, thank you so much. Gordana Kirans is my name. I'm very good. Here we go. Gordana Kirans, based in Croatia, with a consultancy and a membership network for startups. I have a kind of a hypothetical question for you. Let's assume that we talked about business models earlier in the previous session, and let's assume Samsung has to integrate the product as a service model. And every product that we buy from Samsung is not ours anymore, it's actually still Samsung, and Samsung has to bring it back. Are there regulations in place, or are regulations, probably not, but is there a thinking about regulations or a framework, barcodes, that can actually ease something like that for Samsung to get the products from everywhere around the world back to the base and use the materials again?
Thank you very much. Excellent questions. I said, can we do that? My answer to that is probably not. Each sector of the economy has their expertise. Samsung has expertise in manufacturing. Okay? MediaMarkt has expertise of retailers. So we do have different expertise. So you asked me that question, if Samsung has ambition to do all the way to end users and recycle. Answer to that is that won't be fair for Samsung. It will be very difficult, and the system will be inefficient. So still, the expert need to be there, and this expert-to-expert organization need to work together. Current system is in such that once we deliver product to MediaMarkt, okay, then we lost all the information about the end users. There's no way of communicating us to end users, asking them, use this way, that is better, use more improved cycle is better. We cannot do that. Of course, we are trying to do it by introducing connected product. So if you register and use Wi-Fi, your washing machine acts like your smartphone. So we update once in a while. We give you how much kilowatt you use for one cycle or not. We can do that. But still, end product control, we don't have it. By law, we are not supposed to control end users' information. And the dealers doesn't want to share that information to us, neither. So there are difficulties, and by no means Samsung has ambition to do all the way. No, we cannot do that. We don't have any ambition to do that. Okay?
Fair? Fair? I think there are some in the middle here as well. How about that fellow right there? Oh, but before you do that, folks, it's Sarah. Welcome, Sarah!
I made it.
You made it. You made it. We saved you a seat. It would be funny to say everybody scooch over one, but I think better is you go grab yours.
So we are over, right?
Sorry?
Sarah's turn.
Well, I do want to ask Sarah a question before I go to the question from the audience, so sorry. Sarah's the head of public affairs production at H&M Group. So Sarah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for rushing. I know it was difficult for you.
Thank you so much for accommodating me.
Well, no, we've been waiting, so we're going to start now.
As a reward, she will answer the rest of the questions.
No, I do want to ask. I had a question specifically for each panelist. I've got a question just for you, Sarah. This is it. How does H&M interact with the different players within its supply chain to incorporate sustainability considerations into its sourcing decisions and supply chain management practices? And how do you see this changing in light of the EU legislations around circular economy?
And I think I also get the longest question ever, didn't I?
I mean, let's be honest. That was like 6 questions pretending to be 2.
Thank you so much. I love the question, actually. I started working in H&M in the sustainability department for the supply chain. I was located at that time in Hong Kong back in 2018. And that's exactly when we started talking about business integration. And with that, we meant that sustainability could not be something that we were doing on the side or with a different way of doing things, but rather they should have been integrated in the business right on. And I can see that happening every day. I can tell you that just a few weeks back, I was in Bangladesh and in China with our head of production, so the one person that is actually placing the orders with the suppliers. And one of the slides she was presenting to all of the strategic suppliers we met individually in those 2 weeks has been a slide on climate and how to cut emissions, and what was the right way to do it, and what data do we have. And we looked at the data together with each of the suppliers and discussed possible plans between now and 2030. And we all asked them to take actions with different, interventions models, depending on what the situation was like for each of them, between now and 2028, because we want to have 2 years of buffer in order to meet our ambitions and our goals that are indeed set for 2030. So this is the way we do with sustainability. Sustainability is one of the many KPIs that we have when we look at our production, together with the quality, of course, and together with on-time delivery, that are the other 2 most important KPIs. So sustainability is definitely one of the 3 most important elements that we consider every time we place an order. Now, how will this all change when the new European Union legislations will come into force? First of all, let me just say that we appreciate and we are actually grateful for this direction that the European Union is taking. So we are absolutely in line and absolutely trying to work in the same direction. But we see that few things will change, because some of our suppliers will be located in countries and in legislations that actually provide for a better and easier legal framework for them to do sustainability work. Others will not. So inevitably, this will create a chiasm, will create a division, different conditions for different suppliers. I give you a concrete example, going back to the climate thing that we were mentioning before. So, of course, we are encouraging all of our suppliers to use renewable electricity. Now, using the renewable electricity for this specific industry is not always easy because some of the processes require high intensity of heat, and therefore electricity is not the most practical options immediately available. However, we are still trying to find ways to move in that direction, but there will be a clear difference between the suppliers located in countries where renewable electricity is available, is supplied easily, like India, for instance, where we have extensive operations, and others will be in a completely different situations, like, for instance, in Bangladesh, where the renewable electricity in the grid is less than 4%. And there will be competition to buy that 4%, and it will be then difficult for everyone to really have a level playing field. So how to integrate in our sustainability work these considerations is the next conversation that we need to have.
That is fantastic. It was worth the wait. Worth the wait. We had a question right there. There's a fellow already got his microphone, and I'm afraid this might end up being the last question.
Okay, I'll try and make it good. This has already been touched on a little bit, but I think it's going to be more towards Aurel and Ike. Giving you a break, Sarah. Thank you. EU has recently introduced the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. I'd like to get the opinions of the puzzle on the panel on, has this been effective? Do we think it will be effective at reducing carbon emissions? And kind of tie a few in questions in there.
We're used to it.
Do you think that is a framework that could be applied for other products or for other environmental impacts?
I will not comment on a system which is, I mean, it would be still premature to comment about the CBAM. It's very much at the beginning, and I am not directly working on it, so I won't make risky comments. But I would like to say that we are not aspiring with the sustainability requirements to, I mean, CBAM is not on a pedestal towards which we aspire necessarily, and we wait for the enlargement, or we advocate for the enlargement of the CBAM in order to include different other requirements. But having said this, there must be dovetailing and a consistency between the CBAM direct and indirect consequences for certain products or materials and other requirements which are laid down in non-CBAM legislation. And we have come across such reflections when thinking about the carbon footprint of batteries. Batteries is another piece of legislation where we have, which has been adopted recently, and we have taken the same entire life cycle approach that we have taken in other respects. So there must be, let's say, a compatibility, and the requirements which are laid down in the different frameworks should not be inconsistent, in particular when it comes to the operation of a company and the manufacturing of different manufacturing processes. That's all what I would comment right now.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
Me?
You count as anyone else. You're as allowed as anyone.
If you are interested, put your head into line.
Chomping at the bit.
You already said that, you know, the CBAM, I believe it is not yet complete. This framework is start from. I think the responsibility of carbon releasing is also very important responsibility to trace back. So idea, I like it as it is. How to implement is a little bit, I may have a little bit different opinion. As an engineer I am, whatever regulation comes, whatever push comes, we can come up with solution, no doubt about it. That's what engineers' responsibility. So I know how to do it. We can do it. But thing is that end result, human impact, societal impact is something which we have to take a look at seriously. I think good communication with manufacturers, with government is very important. So the government need to understand what it means. Whenever they say this, they say that. But I always say that we don't mind to have tighter regulation. We will get the solution. As long as the regulation is, playing field is flat. It's not prefer one company or one country. This is wrong. It's playing same, the horizontal playing field, and you compete each other. That's what engineer all about. I don't know how many engineers are here. Maybe not that many, because most of engineers are busy in making things. But
We got a couple. We've got a couple.
our responsibility is that I know I've been an engineer for 50 years. Still, I can give innovative idea to engineers. Still, I can have different idea to save environment too. So I think the possibility is limitless. If we work together, we can make better future. Thank you.
It's a fantastic way to close. I see your hand up in the back, and unfortunately, I don't have time for the question, but the great news is the conversation continues on the app. So put it in the app. Everyone else, answer as best you can. Imagine what they would say. And you're all active on the app, I can tell. I do have to wrap it up, unfortunately, and it's a fantastic conversation. Thank you all for being here, part of it. I'd like to think we can all walk away saying to ourselves that there's new legislation aiming to make sustainable products the norm in the EU, and then it's going to have positive environmental and economic benefits also in third countries, ensuring sustainable trade practices. We just heard that confirmed from 5 and discussed from 5 fantastic sources. How about a big round of applause for Oral, Ake, Dochel, Francesca, and much better late than never, Sarah Negro. We'll now stand awkwardly while you...
Thank you. It's a very nice talk.
It was a pleasure. Yes.